So, security. Is there another word that brings so much fear and dread to developers everywhere? Like, if your manager comes up to you and says, hey, someone from security is looking for you, immediately you go, oh no, and you think about all the commits you did to production that week. So today, hopefully, we learn how we can avoid that. But first, a little bit about myself. My name is Dan. I'm a tech lead and co-founder of the Career OS. I'm originally from Romania, but now I live in beautiful, sunny Barcelona. I like speaking, writing about security, accessibility, testing. And if you want to read more about my work or browse my content, you can follow me on Twitter. I'll have a QR code at the end. And career-wise, professionally, I've worked on all three big frameworks. So I've started with Angular. Actually, I started with jQuery because it was in the talk before. But you know, Angular, Vue, and now I'm fully working with React. So before we start, who here has ever been hacked? Or worked at a company that has been hacked? Or, you know, heard in the news about a friend that has been hacked? So there's no shame in it. In my previous company, we were hacked quite often, to tell you the truth. And the first time, it was actually pretty funny. So the hackers got access to the admin of our company, the back office, where they could have done some serious damage. They could create promo codes and actually steal money from the company. They can download user information, even export our entire database. But instead, what they did is they changed the pictures in the entire website to their hacker logo. So this is what they did. And then they bragged about it over the internet. And internally, it was pretty funny. The company took it as a joke. Now, the second time they hacked us, they did download the entire database and put it online. And it wasn't so funny at the second time. And this forced the company to create all these security practices and roles like InfoSec. You know, you have a department that creates awareness about security. CyberSec for firewall protection. DevSec for permissions and activity logs. And so many teams that end with sec that I don't even know what they do. But because for us, product engineers, software engineers, web developers, front-enders, who build features for our users, all these teams don't actually do anything for us. Maybe we get a generic training once a year, but in reality, we might get like once every 6 months a warning that what you built might be a vulnerability. So security for most of us, it's something that is usually far away. Like we develop a feature, we push it to production, and in 6 months we get a ticket assigned to us that says this is a security breach. And by that time, it might actually be too late. And why does this happen? Because we are using the latest tools and frameworks that we have at our disposal, and we think that surely that's enough. Right? You can trust your coworkers. You can trust the framework you're choosing. You can trust some well-maintained third-party library. But in reality, you shouldn't trust no one, especially unmaintained libraries or third-party packages. So one trick I like to use is every time I choose a library or a package, I go on the issues of that GitHub repository and check to see the response time of the maintainers, or if they actually respond and fix issues. So let's look at the most popular example of a vulnerability, right? The Death Star. So it took decades to build and run. It was so secure, but then it's gone just like this. It was destroyed in a single shot in an exhaust port that was carefully planted like a backdoor system. So let me explain how we can avoid this. Before we actually start coding, a really good practice is a framework of mind called second-order thinking. So this means when you're coming up with a solution, don't just think about the problem you're solving with your solution, but think of the consequences. So when you're building a feature or a project, you have to map out what are the good outcomes and the bad outcomes of the first-order consequences. And then go a step further and think of the second-order consequences that might come up. So let's think about you want to build a feature that is like a checkout. You observe that a lot of people are not signing up and they're dropping off at the checkout stage of the product. Now, you might come up with a solution that says, okay, let's just not be required for them to sign up. Let's do a guest checkout, right? Now, obviously, a bad outcome of this is that you're going to have fewer accounts because you allow them to create, which is something other teams might worry about. So again, we need to map out the good outcomes and the bad outcomes of a problem. So realistically, when we build a feature, and the biggest security issue is actually us, the developers, because we often think in solutions and not in consequences. So one way to model this is before you start building any feature, you should use a powerful framework called threat modeling. So basically, you and your team get in a room, and before you have that story and break it out in tasks and you do grooming, you actually take pens and Post-its, and you think what might actually go wrong with this feature. So you set objectives, and then you visualize what are you building. And then you identify threats. What can actually go wrong in your application? And here you can be as creative as possible, right? You lose control of your database and stuff like that. And you post this on a board, and then you and your team think, okay, how do we mitigate that? How can we build our feature in such a way that all of these things do not happen? And then afterwards, you validate your results with your initial goals. So to do threat modeling successfully, you actually, everyone in the team must know what are the most biggest security vulnerabilities out there. So the most common one are backdoor products and libraries, cross-site scripting, security logging, and spoofing. And this is what I want to focus on today. So let's go with the first one, which is the backdoor products and libraries. So one common joke we hear on the internet very often is obviously the heaviest objects in the universe. We start with a sun, a neutron star, a black hole, and then is the node modules in our projects. So unfortunately, the entry point for node modules, the package JSON, is also the entry point for the most dangerous vulnerabilities out there. So it might actually need a sign that says, here be dragons. So why is that? You usually want to use a popular library or a library that is perfect for the feature you are building. And with a simple npm install, you can open up yourself to danger. Now, even if this library that you want to use it's not vulnerable itself, it may use a library or package that has, or its dependency might use a dependency that it's a direct exploit. So thankfully, NPM provides an audit service of every package, and it gives you a score of low, medium, of high. And you can use it with NPM audit fix, force, and this will attempt to fix your installed package. Now, I want to stress the word attempt, because in JavaScript, things are not usually that simple. Here I had 22, I ran force, and now I have 33. GitHub also has a vulnerability checker called Dependabot that checks each PR for new updates or if you are introducing a package that might be vulnerable. It also automatically creates a PR to bump vulnerable versions for you, explaining the release notes and the changelog. Now, unfortunately, both NPM Audit and the Dependabot catch problems only after they have been flagged and they're already online. And, so by the time NPM warns you, it might actually be too late. So there are a couple of best practices before installing a package. Check the library and package if it's well maintained. Check their issues on GitHub, see how often maintainers respond to requests. Do regular checks using npm audit, maybe include it in your CI/CD pipeline. Install Dependabot, Sneak, or other security audit software to keep your project safe. And most importantly, stay ahead of the game. Check websites or Twitter accounts that talk about the latest vulnerabilities. So most importantly, you have to practice constant vigilance. So let's discuss about cross-site scripting. Now, cross-site scripting, you might know it as XSS, has been in the OWASP top 10 every year for the past 4 or 5 years. And in 2022, it is the third most popular vulnerability. So I guess hooray for XSS. So an XSS vulnerability happens when an attacker manages to inject malicious code inside an application. Now, this malicious script is then executed by other users who access your website, and then it gets access to cookie data, local storage, or other browser-related information. So a typical example is like this. You have an article page, and at the bottom of the article page, you want to add comments. And because you want to make the comments more engaging and more fun, you allow your users to style their comments or upload images and stuff like that, right? And an attacker sees this, and instead of writing a comment, he would write an execution script like, let's say, script alert something, right? He writes some JavaScript code. Now this gets saved in the database, and when other users join that page and they want to read the comments, it gets that comment from the database and it executes it in your file. And then for all users, alert would appear. Now, typically, this is an example, and all frameworks obviously check for script tags, and they don't allow script tags to be introduced or executed. But what hackers do, which is they actually upload images, and inside their onload or on error methods, they do the whole stealing of your information thing. So they do a fetch to their basically API, and they get whatever they want from your local storage, cookies, whatever. So this is pretty scary. You can browse around their website, and because someone inserted an image maliciously, it can take all your cookie and local storage information. Now, the good news is this is totally avoidable. The recommended solution is, as front-end developers, to never render HTML for user-generated content. That way, we all sleep better at night. So don't use VHTML or dangerously set HTML or set inner HTML using vanilla JavaScript. But if you have to use it, you can at least sanitize the user input using like a popular library called Sanitize HTML. Of course, that's not up to us, but the backend should also validate the user input that it's correct and not malicious. So let's talk about security logging. So in today, it's 2023, and most of us, or our company, or our team, measures everything, right? We measure page views, we measure clicks, events, error, how much the user is scrolling, all sorts of user-related data that we can use to determine if what we're building is actually works, right? We measure funnels, we measure conversion rate and stuff like that. And unfortunately, we sometimes might send too much data to our third-party vendors, because to measure all this, we use Google Analytics, we use Datadog, stuff like that. So what's the most common data we are sending, right? We use third-party tools like Sentry, Google Analytics, and we are sending, obviously, reset password tokens, promo codes, or checkout-generated links. And why is that? Because when we're creating routes and URLs, we sometimes do it using a query param, like this, right? We have our website, reset password, then we use query, token is, and the token name. Now, when a user goes to this link, we obviously log every page view, so this will get logged inside the application. in the third-party vendor. We don't have access to the third-party vendor's database, so if they get hacked, we get hacked by association. So to prevent this, it's recommended not to use query params and instead use hashes, right? So you have something like reset password, hash token, and then the token itself. Now, if you do this normally, the observability tool should not log the hashes. But most importantly, it's recommended for you to audit your URLs and pages and make sure you do not show user data on public pages, right? So for example, you have a checkout, a user completes the checkout, and at the end he has a confirmation page. Congratulations, here is the billing details, what you ordered, whatever. And you will generate a link like this, your website/order, and then the order ID. You want only your user to be able to access this URL. You don't want it to be public, because this can, again, go to your observability tools, and it might become public by mistake, and then anybody can access user information if it's not properly controlled. So for best practices, use hashes instead of query params for sensitive data. Make sure you validate control access to personal data like checkout, and try to pick what observability data you're actually sending to your vendors. Usually what we do is we just get their SDK and we install it in our application, and we just inject it somewhere and say, okay, go wild, take everything, right? Let's try to just send the information we're actually interested in. So spoofing. Now, phishing and spoofing have gotten very creative over the years, right? And while both of them employ similar tactics to achieve the results, which is basically to take the user from their email or a website to their own, the attacker-controlled website so they can steal their information, they achieve it in different ways. So phishing usually does it, they fake an official email, and inside the call to action, they will redirect you to their own website, right? I cannot even count the number of fake Jira emails I receive that says a ticket is lost or something, or an AWS email that says I have a bill of $5,000 to pay. Just click here to see the why you have to pay it, right? And usually emails are pretty smart. Gmail is smart. It can figure out if there's a phishing attack. You always have to verify that the email is actually from Amazon and it's not like a fake address that it created. So for phishing, the best outcome you can do is to practice constant vigilance. Check the sender, check the content, and that the link you are going to has the correct domain name before clicking on actually any links. So spoofing, on the other hand, is way more dangerous because it takes advantage of a flaw inside our website to redirect to another website. So think of a page where you can add promo codes. Now, if you're building a feature that adds promo codes, you usually want to send promo codes to users' email, right? So a user receives an email, an official email from us, let's say we're Uber Eats, and say, hey, you have this promo code, apply it now. You click that, it will take you to a link like this, where you have in the URL the actual promo code. Now, us as developers, we look at the URL, we take the code from there, and then we render it in the page. And because maybe we want to have internationalization, right? We want to say apply code, in other language, we want to say something else. So again, we might render the HTML of getting that code. So we might use, again, VHTML or dangerously set HTML to render that code for styling purposes or for a translation library. And because we do that, we open ourselves to a spoofing technique. So what the attacker does is modifies the URL, and instead of the code, it adds HTML that would render something like this. Apply code, blah, 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 and click here. Very easy to see and spot. And then he will take that link and share it online, like on forums, on other pages, maybe create actually a marketing campaign using that email. And users will come here, see that the URL is Uber Eats. They will feel super comfortable. OK, I want this code. And they click here where it says, and click here. And then they will be redirected to another website that looks like Uber Eats, but it's not. And then they will ask for their personal information, credit card information, and stuff like that. So, like in the case of XSS, the best approach is to never use functions that render HTML, like VHTML or dangerously set HTML, to render user content or content from the URL, cookies, or another medium the attacker can exploit. Now this warning is given in the official Vue documentation, which says that user-provided JavaScript can never be considered 100% safe, unless it's in a sandbox iframe or in a part of the app where only the user who wrote that JavaScript can ever be exposed to it. So to minimize the risk of security vulnerabilities, it's important to follow best practices, such as validating user input, using encryption for sensitive data, and implementing proper access controls. Always sanitize user input, and try not to render anything that is generated by the users. So now that we know what the main risks are to our front-end application, we can easily introduce thread modeling before estimating or grooming a story. So like I said, we visualize our outcome. We want our product to be secure. And then we gather in a room or online. We use Miro. And we think, OK, we're building this feature that is a promo code generator. What are the outcomes? What can attackers do to take advantage of our application, right? For example, we might make the promo code too small, and then they can use a generator and generate random millions of codes, and then have bots that can just enter your website and try the promo codes one after one after one until they get one that it succeeds. It's very super cost effective for them to do this, right? You can spring up millions of bots with $1, right? So just last month, an aerospace company in Spain got hacked. I don't know if you've seen this in the news. And the hackers from North Korea, they didn't actually do it by hacking the mainframe, having dark glasses, a hoodie, doing it in a basement. No, what they did is they actually hacked the developers. So they pretended to be like recruiters from Meta and Google. They went on LinkedIn, found developers that work at this company, and then they tried to get them to interviews. And what they did a normal HR interview, perfectly normal, nobody suspected a thing, and then they sent them a coding challenge, like it's proper to do. And once the developers open that coding challenge and then they run it on their office computer, they got hacked. And then the attackers got access to the network. So, so if you take one thing from this talk, let it be this. First, constant vigilance. I repeat it most of the times. And then try to use your own computer when running outside code. Don't use your office computer. And of course, for passwords, for everything that you might use, the best thing to do is, keep it secret, keep it safe. So, yes, thank you. My name is Neciu. If you want to know more about me, reach out on Twitter. We still have 10, 15 minutes, so I want to open up to questions. If everyone...
What's your PIN code?
My PIN code, yes. 0000. Very easy to remember. And no hacker would think about that. Yes?
Can you elaborate more on the hash and using
Sure. Let me just go back. Here, right? Yeah. So now the reset password is not an actual security vulnerability per se because users go there, they use the token, and obviously it's no longer valid, right? But let's think of another use case that this may happen. Let's say we actually send a promo code like this. So we go your website, apply code, and then instead of the token, we have the promo code, right? So this, obviously, when users reach this link, and if they don't use the promo code at the moment, this will be logged in third-party tools like Google Analytics, Datadog, Sentry, New Relic, whatever you're using, Mixpanel, let's say, whatever. This would be logged, and someone, you don't know who has access to that tool, even from our company, right? It's like you're an intern, and they see that token, they take it, and they use it themselves. Not that much of a big deal, but let's say this happens at scale. Yes?
To add to that, you can also, so there are like browser plugins which also steal URLs. So you shouldn't be just putting like non-secret stuff in the URL anyway.
Yes.
The token should expire in like 5 minutes or something, right?
Of course, that would be the ideal way, right? Everything should expire instantly after once it's been used once, it should expire, right? But it could you could use there, for example, names and emails or whatever that don't expire, not security codes. And again, that is sensitive information that can be then stolen by hackers. Yes?
You know any tools what can recognize these things on code bases, not especially about this token, but in general. So what kind of tools should we use to scan our code?
So I know a couple, but they're paid. I don't know, should I? Like, for example, Sneak does this, right? It has, it's called SNY and K. And they do this by taking a look at your entire code base. Then they have a huge database of vulnerabilities. And what they do is they give you, like exactly like Dependabot, they create PRs for you automatically and say, hey, you have a huge security vulnerability. This is where it happens. Please fix it. There's also a really cool called Security Warrior, where usually teams can compete against each other, solving like hacker tools. And this is like a common practice to get your developers to know more about security.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you ever hacked someone else?
Me, when I was a kid, yes. Yeah, I was, like I said, I'm from Romania. So yeah, well, it was in my small town. It was a common practice when I was 12, 13 years old. We were on IRC and IRC, and we were doing all sorts of hacking. It was fun. It was harmless, but then it became not so harmless, and I quit. Yes.
So with the recommendations that you had, for example, the dependable or Sneak or something else. So those are also third-party tools. The same applies to the observability monitors. Now for that one, there's an Atomo which you can host yourselves. But if you decide to use a third party for stuff like this, how would you go about vetting them for trustworthiness? Because it's one thing to vet the library, but a company is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's probably. So what they do actually, they say that they don't keep your data, so they don't have access to it. They don't store anything, right? They have a thing that scans your code. Then they have a database of vulnerabilities, which is not yours. They're the internet, what's on internet. And the thing that they do is that they don't store anything about you, right, or about your company.
In general, like if you say you use that observability tool, you use a new relic, or you use a
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they're established names, sure, but
Yes, yes, they do.
What would be some recommendations to look out for when you want to choose one of these services or companies?
Sure. The first thing I would recommend is make sure they don't store um, the biggest thing is if they encrypt your data. So this would be like the one thing. Like they also have to be GDPR compliant. So a really good thing is ask them where they keep their data. So is it in Europe or is it in the US? Right. If it's a company that stores all that information in the US, you might not be so sure of what they do with that data, right? So this is a huge thing to look out for. Then again, see if they use encryption. Then you check their history. Have they ever been hacked? How do they handle it? What I really love about some companies is they post their postmortems publicly, which actually gives you confidence like, okay, they're shit happens, we know that. It has to happen for everybody. We can't blame them for this. Especially if you're using a security company, your standards should be higher. Like, I expect you not to be hacked, you're a security company. But other than that, if their postmortems are public, I would have more confidence in that company. Cool. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.